Hi guys, this is Nick from MTG Unlimited. Today I'm going to be doing a commander deck tech over Xenagos. I really like this deck. It's probably one of my favorite commander decks, and it's really my first competitive commander deck. So with that being said, let's get started with our mana base here. Just some non-utility lands I have in the deck. Temple of Abandon, Stomping Ground, and Temple of the False God. Temple of Abandon, just good scry land. Stomping Ground, obviously, and Temple of the False God just taps for 2 colorless. Moving on to more non-utility lands. Command Tower, Nykthos, and Rupture Spire. Again, pretty self-explanatory. Command Tower taps for both colors. Nykthos, I can use that to generate a lot of mana, especially late game. And Rupture Spire, I have to pay 1 when it comes in, but then I can tap for any color, so pretty good. And now to our utility lands. We have Kessig Wolfrun, Tranquil Thicket, Skarg the Rage Pits, and Rogue's Passage. Kessig Wolfrun, I can use its second ability for a Forest, a red, and X to give target creature +X/+0 and Trample. So with Xenagos, I can make my creatures really big, but having Trample is really key to actually get in for a lot of damage, or else they can just chump block. So that's really helpful. And Skarg the Rage Pits does pretty much that exact same thing. Tranquil Thicket's just a good cycle land. Rogue's Passage, I can use it for 4 colorless tap and make a creature unblockable. So that combos really well with Xenagos, pumping my creatures and then making them unblockable. And then to finish out our mana base here, we have 17 forest and 10 mountains. Alright, now moving into our creatures here, I'm going to start with the lowest drops and just move up. Our only one drop in the deck, Ulvenwald Tracker. I have this guy in here just because he provides us with some removal in a creature, so that's always nice. I can pay 2, tap him, and have a creature I control fight another creature. So with my creatures being as big as they are in this deck, it's pretty much just a kill spell, and I can use it over and over again, so it's really helpful. Onto our lone 2-drop, Sakura Tribe Elder. Again, just I can sack him and search up a basic land, so just a little bit of ramp early on in the game. Moving on to our 3 drops, we have Moanvuli Beast Tracker and Fearsome Path. Moanvuli Beast Tracker just provides us like a tutor inside of a creature. There is some conditions though. It has to have Death Touch, Reach, Trample, or Hexproof. Let's just search up a guy with Trample because they combo best with Xenagos. And Fearsome Path, I just get to search up a guy with CMC 6 or greater, put it in my hand. So that really helps. Using my hand and what I already have on the board, I can kind of plan out what I want to do for the rest of the game, and that guy really helps to put a card that I may be missing from my strategy into my hand. Moving on to our 4 drops, we have Oracle of Moldiah and Elvish Piper. Oracle's probably one of my favorite green cards of all times. He should be played in really any commander deck that plays green. Just really good card. And Elvish Piper, 4 mana for a 1/1, and a green I can tap her and put a creature from my hand onto the battlefield. With all my creatures being as expensive as they are, she comes in handy, being able to drop some of my really big mana-costing creatures pretty early in the game. Now onto our 5 drops. We have Malignus, Zerta Ancient, and Colonian Hydra. Colonian Hydra combos really well with Xenagos with the +1/+1 counters. And I get to double them, and it already comes with Trample, which is always really nice. Zerta Ancient just gives me a bunch of mana, because everything can tap for double, and Malignus is really, really good. Being able to play a Malignus on turn 5, and having a 20/20, and then giving it +20/+20 with Xenagos, and swinging for 40, and if they don't have a blocker out on turn 5, ending the game for somebody on turn 5, can make them quite mad, but if you don't like playing like that, then you don't have to play this card, but I find it really fun to do that to people sometimes. Alright, now onto our 6 drops. I've separated these into 2 here. We have Rurik Thar, Hellkite Tyrant, Vigor, and Hydra Omnivore. Rurik Thar is really good, especially since I don't play that many non-creature spells. Just ping somebody for 6 every single time they want to cast something, especially with counter spells, makes people a little more hesitant to play, and that just stalls their deck out, lets me win faster. Hellkite Tyrant's really good, especially since a lot of people play a lot of artifacts in their commander decks. And yeah, it's an automatic win con if I get 20 or more, but I usually don't like to have automatic win cons, so just being able to steal somebody's artifacts is pretty nice. Vigor is really good for preventing all damage to my creatures, and then just making them even bigger whenever they block or get blocked. And Hydra Omnivore is a really fun card to play when you're playing with a 4-person commander game or even more. Just an 8/8 and slap trample on it, and you're just hitting everybody for a lot of damage, and just swing at the guy that's most vulnerable, and everybody gets hit. So it can make you a target, kind of, but when you have them on the battlefield, they're not going to have a lot of time to respond before you win the game. Continuing on with the rest of our 6 drops here, we have Soul to Harvest, just some good draw power. Hellkite Charger, I use him for his second ability to pay 7 and get an additional combat phase. That's really useful. And Hydra Broodmaster, he's just a big beefy creature, and using his monstrosity ability, he gets even bigger and makes a ton of really big creatures, so that guy's always fun to play. Our lone 7-drop we have in the deck is Spearbreaker Behemoth. He's indestructible, and for 1 colorless, he can give another creature power 5 or greater indestructible. That's pretty much 90% of my creatures, so not too conditional for me, and just giving everything indestructible is really useful. Moving on to our 8 drops, I've separated these into creatures with into the battlefield effects and creatures without. So these are the creatures with into the battlefield effects. We have Craterhoof Behemoth. I'm sure you guys know what he does. He's really good in the deck. Terrastodon and Woodfall Primus both give me a little bit of removal in a creature, which is something that I really like in this deck, especially since we don't have that much removal and we're more focused on creatures. So I get a 2-in-1 with those guys, and they combo really well. And the rest of our 8 drops, we have Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger, Liege of the Tangle, Udvar Hellkite, and Archetype of Endurance. Vorinclex is my favorite of the Praetors. He can make you a target really easily, but at a 7/6 trample and giving you a ton of mana and making it so everybody else, their mana doesn't untap at their upkeep, it's really fun and really annoying for other people. Liege of the Tangle gives you a bunch of 8/8 elementals. When you deal combat damage, you can turn all your lands into 8/8 elementals, and they're still lands, so that can end a game really quickly. Udvara Hellkite's just ridiculous. I don't have that many dragons in the deck, but just she attacking is enough to put down a dragon, and then those 2 attack, and I put down 2 more, and it just multiplies exponentially. And Archetype of Endurance just gives all my creatures hexproof, and their creatures can't have or gain hexproof. Just a nice little addition to the deck. And lastly, in our creatures, we have like the Misfits. In terms of mana cost, we have World Spine Worm, Savageborn Hydra, and Primordial Hydra. World Spine Worm is ridiculous at a 15/15 trample, and when he dies, you get 3 5/5s with trample. And whenever he's put into the graveyard, just shuffle him back into your library. So with Elvish Piper out, you can play that guy for 1 mana. It's really fun. Savageborn Hydra and Primordial Hydra, being Hydras, they combo really well with Xenagos. Savageborn Hydra has Double Strike, and Primordial Hydra has Trample, so both of those work really well with Xenagos. Moving on to our 3 instant spells in the deck, we have Signal to Clans, Worldly Tutor, and Beast Within. Signal to Clans is just good for searching up some of my big guys. Worldly Tutor does the same thing, and Beast Within is our only removal spell that's not a creature in the game. So just being able to destroy any permanent at instant speed for 3 mana is really great. I don't really care that they get a 3/3 because my creatures are so big, it's puny to me. Moving on to our sorceries, split these up into 3 piles here. We have Overwhelming Stampede, Hunter's Prowess, and Triumph of the Hordes. These are like, not necessarily combat tricks, but just pump spells. Overwhelming Stampede can get really ridiculous. Hunter's Prowess gives me a lot of cards that I get to draw and pumps my creature. And Triumph of the Hordes is kind of a douchey way to win the game, but, it gets the job done. Finishing out our sorceries that are... Oh, excuse me, we still have some more sorceries after this. But we have Harmonize, Clan Defiance, Genesis Wave, and Green Sun Zenith. Genesis Wave and Green Sun Zenith are pretty self-explanatory. Clan Defiance is really good for being able to deal a lot of damage, especially with how much mana I have laying around. And Harmonize just draws me 3 for 4, so good card. And now, closing out our sorceries, we have our ramp spells. Sky Shroud Claim, Cultivate, Explosive Vegetation, Kodamas Reach, and Farseek. Just gives me a bunch of lands, just helps the deck accelerate a bit faster, play those higher drop creatures earlier in the game to kind of get ahead of our opponent. Moving on to the artifacts we have in the deck. I will start out with mana producing artifacts. We just have Darksteel Ingot, Gilded Lotus, Soul Ring, and Doubling Cube. All really good cards. Gilded Lotus, obviously, 3 of any color. Soul Ring, just 2 colorless. Doubling Cube is really useful for just getting a lot of mana, and Darksteel Ingot, indestructible, so that's pretty handy, and it can just have for any color. Closing out the rest of our artifacts, we have Swiftfoot Boots, Grow Warplow, Loxodon Warhammer, and Lightning Greaves. Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves, just throwing it on Xenagos, making him hexproof in addition to being indestructible, so that's really nice. Grow Warplow just gives creatures I control trample, which is extremely helpful, and Loxodon Warhammer, just some nice little equipment I can throw on a creature, gain some life, and deal some extra damage. Moving on to our enchantments. Enchantments deal with land. We have Exploration, Burgeoning, and Gaia's Touch. Exploration, just being able to play an extra land each turn is really helpful for emptying our hand of lands and keeping stuff that we actually want to play in it. And Burgeoning does the same thing pretty much, and Gaia's Touch just allows us to, again, play an additional land as long as it's a forest. The rest of our enchantments here we have in the deck: Lurking Predators, Cream of the Crop, Asceticism, Primal Rage, and Miri's Guile. Lurking Predators allows us to look at the top card of our library whenever an opponent casts a spell, and if it's a creature, I can just throw it on the battlefield. So that's extremely useful. Cream of the Crop just allows me to pick through the top of my library and set up my draws really well. Asceticism just gives all my creatures hexproof, and I can regenerate a creature for 2, so very useful. Primal Rage gives all my creatures trample, so again, that's one thing I really look for in the deck. And Miri's Guile just allows me to organize my library and my upkeep to kind of set up my draws better. And lastly, just the Planeswalkers in the deck. We have 4 of them: Garruk Wildspeaker, Garruk Primal Hunter, Domri Raid, and Xenagos. Xenagos, just for the flavor, is pretty nice. Garruk Wildspeaker and Garruk Primal Hunter are both really nice in the deck. Primal Hunter allows us to put down a bunch of beasts, draw a bunch of cards, and then just his ultimate is ridiculous. I put down a ton of 6/6 creatures. And Garruk Wildspeaker allows me to untap a bunch of lands so I can play more things each turn, put down beasts, and just his ultimate doesn't cost a lot of loyalty, so I can just use that over and over again. And Domri Raid, I don't know, it's between Domri and Garruk Primal Hunter, the most useful Planeswalkers in the deck, but Domri allows me to look for creatures off the top of my library, and when I get his emblem out, it's ridiculous. So, yeah, that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe, and check out the rest of our channel. Again, thanks, guys.